Hi there, I'm Miriam Baghdadi.
I'm Michaela Ainsworth.
And my name is Luna Moreno, and we are here to talk to you about the tri-state tornado.
So, the tri state tornado of 1925 was a tornado which is a climate related disaster, and it was classified as an EF5 tornado on the Enhanced Fajita scale. The Enhanced Fajita scale is used to assign a tornado a rating based on estimated wind speeds and related damage, ranging from light, EF0, to incredible, EF5. Now, a tornado is a violently rotating column of air extending from a thunderstorm to the ground. The most violent tornadoes are capable of tremendous destruction, with wind speeds up to 330 miles per hour. They can destroy large buildings, uproot trees, and even hurl vehicles hundreds of yards.
So what happened? On March 18th, 1925, a tornado hit the ground in eastern Missouri and then moved all throughout southern Illinois and then southern Indiana before dissipating, or rather like disappearing. It traveled over 219 miles for 3 hours at over 70 miles per hour, with winds going 300 miles per hour, which is quite unusual because tornadoes don't usually do this. Um, this specific tornado was extremely deadly because generally tornadoes travel at 20 to maybe 40 miles per hour, and then they usually just cover 100 miles, maybe a bit more. And so that's what makes this specific tornado extremely deadly. What makes it even more unusual, though, is the fact that the weather beforehand was seemingly normal, and the tornado itself surprised residents. This makes the tri state tornado the deadliest tornado in US history, killing more than 695 people and then injuring over 13,000 more. Immediately after the tornado, though, fires, looting, and homelessness spread through all three states, which basically devastated it even more.
So we just wanted to show a couple of different maps to really, drive in the width and how, vast this tornado really was. So the tornado started in southeast Missouri. More specifically, it started in Reynolds County, which is the first green county that you see in the second map. Before reaching the state lines, it passed through an additional 4 counties, and then it hit the Illinois state line. And once it was in Illinois, it passed through a series of southern counties, including Jackson, Williamson, Franklin, Hamilton, and White County, before it reached the Illinois-Indiana border. Once it reached Indiana, the tornado passed through an additional 3 southern counties before finally ending its line of destruction in Pike County, which is the last red county that you see on the second map.
So, the science behind tornadoes. A tornado is a climate-related disaster, or in other words, a violent atmospheric storm. As mentioned earlier, tornadoes are rotating columns of air that stretch from the clouds to the ground. The weakest of tornadoes usually last maybe no more than a few minutes and then travel only a few miles before dissipating. However, some of the more stronger ones can last longer and travel hundreds of miles. This is what makes the tri state tornado so deadly, as it lasts for 3 hours, killing hundreds in its path. Tornadoes are formed through severe thunderstorms called supercells that have this rotating updraft known as a mesocyclone. These funnels made up of dirt, water droplets, and debris occur when moist, warm air meets cool, dry air, creating this atmospheric instability that causes winds to change direction. This is specifically known as wind shear, which is when winds change direction and then speed, causing rotation within the thunderstorm itself. Some of the things that are looked out for when severe thunderstorms hit are inflow bands, which are bands of cumulus clouds that extend, wall clouds, which are isolated clouds connected to the thunderstorm itself, and then condensation funnels, which are the actual literal tornadoes itself. The tri-state tornado was an EF5 on the enhanced fajita scale. And again, like mentioned earlier, this scale was to measure the destructiveness of each tornado, with 5 being the most destructive.
So, in order to put the tri state tornado into perspective in terms of the true destruction that it caused, the statistical approach is needed. As mentioned before, the tri state tornado lasted 3.5 hours on the ground. In those 3.5 hours, it traveled 219 miles across the southern end of 3 states. And on average, the path width was around 3/4 of a mile wide. 695 people lost their lives as a result of this tornado. And while the numbers do vary according to different sources, an estimated 2,000 to 13,000 individuals additionally sustained injuries. Murfreesboro is often mentioned when the tri state tornado is addressed because the city, which is located in Illinois, suffered the most fatalities as a community. Of the total 695 deaths that occurred, almost a third of those came from the city of Murfreesboro, which recorded 234 deaths. In total, this tornado caused around $17 million worth of property damage, and that is what resulted in a score of the EF5 on the enhanced fajita scale. So this tornado impacted several cities, of which a short list is displayed. And the percentage of destruction in those cities did range from around 20 to 100%, though only 3 cities did record 100% destruction. While that does account for property, it's not necessarily correlated to the number of deaths. And that can be seen in Murfreesboro, which only recorded a 40% damage destruction, but it had the most deaths for a single community out of all 3 states.
The tri state tornado made a devastating impact on human history. This tornado was the deadliest tornado ever experienced in US history alone. And on top of it being the deadliest, it came as a shock to all of those who experienced it. Because up until the 1940s, American weathermen were forbidden to use the word tornado in weather forecasts. This was due to the U.S. Army Signal Service banning the word tornado from being used in said weather forecasts because they were concerned that the word would cause panic. So, for more than half of a century, the weather reports ignored the word tornado. With no tornado warning beforehand, like we would have today, there was no way to escape this tornado. As previously mentioned, the tornado affected 19 plus communities across the states of Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana, killed 695 people, injured around 13,000 people, destroyed around 15,000 homes, and caused immense property damage. Thousands of people were left homeless and without food as well. After the horrible destruction of the tri state tornado, the lives of Americans were changed forever. Scientists were allowed to study tornadoes further. This paved the way for meteorologists to become chasers, chasing these tornadoes in order to make observations and collect data so that more accurate weather warnings could be issued. In the end, because of this devastating tragedy, people nowadays have a lot more access to information to protect themselves from tornadoes.
We wanted to get a short clip of what an EF tornado looks like as a simulation, just so that we could show really how intense that this tornado was for people when it hit.
It is actually getting stronger. Look at how massive this thing is. This is called a wedge tornado because it is wider than it is tall. They can be more than a mile across, sometimes even more than 2 miles across. Imagine that thing coming at you with 200-mile-per-hour winds. This is a deadly EF5. Lights? Yeah, they're starting to flicker now. We're about to get hit. This is as bad as it gets. I'm grabbing my helmet and I'm taking shelter now.
These are the resources we used for this presentation, and thank you so much for watching.